the BBC's just released a thing which is something, it's called something like Been Here All Along or something. And it's basically trying to present the picture of like Britain from 2,000 years ago being massively populated with black people.
Please lend me your ears for this news I shall impart. You may not have been told, we have been here from the start. But in the Stone Age, to war with Bonaparte. For these Isles of British, black people played their part.
And when people pointed out how historically inaccurate this is, there's actually a quote from one of the producers basically saying, well, we've got to lie to make it work in the modern context or something. And I never understood this. Like, there's this phrase that, again, we borrow from America, which is, this is a nation of immigrants. And I've read British history. It's not a nation of immigrants.
It's not.
I'm an immigrant. It doesn't make me feel better that we lie about this. Why do we do that?
I think the reason why we do that is because we sort of don't want to concede any point to the sort of anti-immigrant, conservative or far-right, whatever you want to call them. But I think the best way to do that is to do it on the basis of truth, rather than on the basis of any sort of myth-making. Because if we concede the truth to sinister, nefarious actors, we are actually doing a disservice to ethnic minority people, people from immigrant community backgrounds. So I think we should definitely base it on the truth rather than trying to feather sort of respect for ethnic minority people on the basis of something which a lot of people without any kind of ideological bias will know to be completely dishonest.
And I was curious also what you made of there was a recent incident, as we said there, literally a couple of days ago, where a black woman didn't get a refund in a shop that's owned by a South Asian guy. She basically tried to steal something. He took it off her. She started hitting him, he fought back, and now this guy's in hiding because he's part of the white supremacist, the South Asian guy is a white supremacist. And you're just going, what are any of you talking about?
It's completely, it's ridiculous. But I think that also illustrates why terms like BAME, B-A-M-E, is not really useful because it assumes that the experiences and the values of all ethnic minority people in the UK are the same, when it's obviously not the case. Asian people can be prejudiced against black people can be prejudiced against Asian people. And to just assume that any kind of sort of conflict between these groups is a consequence of white supremacy is extremely condescending to these groups as well.
Yeah, and it's also, it's just deeply weird. It's deeply weird because you look at these people and you just think to themselves, what are you talking about? It doesn't make sense when you look at where this happened. It happened in Peckham. And then for those people who've never been to Peckham, there's not a lot of white people there. You are not going to find a lot of white supremacy in Peckham.
Well, actually, there are some white people, but it's a certain kind of white people.
Yeah.
It's being gentrified, so it's a sort of liberal, youngish, progressive type. It's not the kind of white people you'd normally associate with white supremacy.
And this is it. And I think this is really what we're talking about, where is that people are living in a fictional world. They're living in a world that they literally go online and they're being told that this world exists.
Yes.
And then they're living in this world and you go, but that is not reality in any shape or form.
Yes.
And no one's denying racism exists. Of course it doesn't. There are racist people and blah, blah, blah. But that is not the experience of living in Peckham.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's one of the things that I try to get across in my writings, is that all too often when we talk about race and discrimination, it's done through a very abstract perspective. It's done with a lot of theory, a lot of buzzwords, without any reference to the actual to use a fashionable term, lived experiences of ethnic minority people and also white British people as well, because their experiences can't simply be reduced to being victims of racism. And in fact, that kind of perspective to simply say that as a black person, as an Asian person, your experiences of living in the UK can be explained entirely through racism. That's a completely, I think that's a profoundly damaging distortion of the actual experiences, the actual complex experiences. And I think that also denigrates their humanity as well, to simply consider them as purely victims of racism rather than as complex, fully embodied people.